The night was far from silent. Snowflakes drifted endlessly from the dark sky, coating the ground in a thick blanket of white. The air was sharp with winter's bite, every breath leaving a pale cloud behind. Outside a run-down roadside motel, a woman stood clutching the small hands of her 3 children. They were bundled in oversized coats, but their cheeks were red from the cold, their little bodies shivering despite their hoods and mittens. The woman's face carried exhaustion etched into every line, yet in her eyes there was a glimmer of strength, a mother's unyielding determination to protect her children no matter what. Beside them idled a black SUV. A man leaned out of the driver's side window, his expression caught somewhere between sternness and hesitation. He looked at the woman, then at the children, as though silently weighing something heavy inside him. The woman's eyes flicked toward his, and in that single glance it felt as though years of unspoken stories, regrets, and broken choices had been exchanged. Her name was Emma. For years she had endured the weight of a marriage that felt like a prison. Her husband was a man consumed by alcohol and gambling, leaving Emma to raise their children in neglect and fear. She had fought, she had begged, she had endured, but finally, one night when the shadows grew too heavy, she made her choice. She packed a single worn backpack with clothes and essentials, gathered her children in the dead of night, and walked away. That was days ago. Since then, they had drifted from one cold motel to another, scraping together coins for a night's shelter, sometimes sleeping at bus stations when the money ran out. Emma's body was tired, but her spirit refused to surrender. Every time her children's small hands clutched hers, she knew she couldn't fail them. And then tonight, fate had thrown her into the path of the man in the SUV, Daniel. Years ago, Daniel had been her closest friend. More than that, he had been the one who once loved her with a sincerity that still haunted them both. But Emma, pressured by her parents and blinded by the promise of stability, had chosen another man. She had walked away from Daniel's love and into a life that turned into misery. Daniel's heart had shattered back then, and he had disappeared from her world. Now here he was, staring at her through the falling snow, disbelief written across his features. His voice, when it came, was low and edged with bitterness. "What is this, Emma? You, standing outside a motel in the middle of the night, with children. What happened to you?" Emma drew a deep, shaky breath. "Daniel, I don't have much time to explain. I left. I had to. For them." Her eyes flicked to her children, who clung tighter to her sides. "I need your help. I don't care what happens to me, but they need a safe place. A home, a chance at life, please." Her youngest daughter peeked at Daniel from behind her mother's coat. Big, innocent eyes met his, and in that look something inside Daniel cracked. The bitterness softened, replaced by an ache he couldn't suppress. He remembered Emma as the girl who had once been his world, but more than that, he saw 3 lives depending on a choice only he could make. Snow swirled heavier around them. Time stretched, each second waited with decision. Daniel turned his gaze away, staring down the lonely road ahead. The years of anger and betrayal screamed at him to drive away, but the sight of the children, hungry, cold, fragile, was louder. Finally, he exhaled. His hand moved, and with a quiet thud, the passenger door unlocked. "Get in," he said. Emma's lips trembled into the faintest smile of relief. She ushered the children forward, helping them climb inside, then slid in after them. The warmth of the car's heater wrapped around them, and for the first time in days, the children stopped shivering. They huddled together under the worn blanket Daniel tossed back from the seat, their eyes fluttering as the exhaustion of the road finally began to ease. The SUV rolled forward, its headlights cutting through the snow-cloaked highway. Inside, silence reigned, heavy and complicated. Emma leaned over to check her children, tucking the blanket around their shoulders, kissing their hair softly. Then she turned her face to the window, her reflection ghosted against the passing blur of snow. Daniel gripped the wheel, his knuckles white. Inside his chest, a storm raged. Memories of Emma's laughter, the way she had once looked at him, the night she walked away, all collided with the sight of her now, worn down yet fiercely protective, holding 3 children that weren't his but who suddenly felt like they were his responsibility too. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions: why she left, why she never called, why fate had brought them back together like this. But every time he opened his mouth, he saw the sleeping faces of the children in the rearview mirror and swallowed the words. Hours passed on the road, broken only by the steady hum of the engine and the occasional murmur of a child in sleep. When dawn finally brushed the sky with pale light, they reached the edge of the city. Daniel pulled over by a small diner, its neon sign flickering against the morning frost. Emma stirred awake. Her voice was hoarse. "Why are we stopping?" Daniel turned to her. His eyes were tired, but steady. "Because before we go anywhere else, you're going to eat. And so are they." Emma blinked, a tear slipping down her cheek. She nodded. Inside the diner, the warmth and smell of coffee welcomed them. The children devoured pancakes and hot chocolate, their small faces lighting up for the first time in what felt like forever. Emma sat quietly, watching them, her heart aching with gratitude. Daniel sat across from her, silent, but his eyes never left her face. Finally, he leaned forward. "Emma, what do you want from me?" Her voice broke. "A chance. For them. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to fix everything. But I know you. I know the man you are. And I know you won't let them fall into the same darkness I've escaped." Daniel looked at the children, then back at her. Something shifted inside him. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was love, buried but not dead. Or maybe it was simply the undeniable pull of responsibility. "I don't know where this road leads," he said slowly, "but if you're asking whether I'll stand with you and them, then yes. I will." Emma's hand trembled as it slid across the table. Daniel hesitated, then took it. In that moment, the snow outside didn't feel as cold. The night of despair gave way to a fragile dawn of hope. And though the journey ahead was uncertain, one truth burned clear: together, they were no longer lost. They had found a beginning. The sun rose pale and cold over the snowy horizon, but for Emma it felt like a rare warmth had returned. The diner's windows steamed faintly from the heat inside, the clink of cutlery and the hum of conversation surrounding them like a fragile shelter from the world outside. Her children were finally smiling again, cheeks flushed not from cold but from the thrill of being fed and safe, even if only for a fleeting moment. Daniel sat quietly, his coffee cooling in front of him. He watched Emma tend to the children, cutting their food into small bites, brushing crumbs from their jackets, kissing their hair. He remembered her younger self, the girl who used to laugh so easily, who used to dream out loud. Now she looked older, wearier, like life had drained her laughter drop by drop. But she was stronger, too, stronger than anyone he had ever known. "Daniel," she whispered when the children's chatter softened, "thank you. I don't know what would have happened last night if you hadn't." She trailed off, her voice cracking. He shook his head, his jaw tightening. "Don't thank me. I haven't decided anything yet." Her eyes flickered with worry, but she nodded. She understood. He had every reason to turn away. The children finished eating, and soon they were bundled back into the SUV. Daniel drove them through winding streets toward the outskirts of the city. Emma finally broke the silence. "I know I've put you in an impossible position," she said softly, her eyes fixed on the snowy landscape rushing by. "But I had no choice. He would have destroyed them, and me." Daniel gripped the steering wheel harder. He needed no name. Daniel knew exactly who she meant, her husband, Mark. Even years ago, Daniel had sensed the darkness in him, but Emma hadn't wanted to see it then. "You think he'll come after you?" Daniel asked. Emma's throat tightened. "I know he will." The words hung heavy in the air. By evening, Daniel had taken them to his late father's cabin, an old, weathered place on the edge of a frozen lake. It wasn't much, but it was secluded, quiet, safe. As he stoked the fire in the stone hearth, the children played with a small basket of wooden toys Daniel dug out from storage. Their laughter filled the cabin, bouncing against the wooden beams like a fragile echo of normal life. Emma stood by the fire, watching him. The glow of the flames lit his face, highlighting the tension that never left his eyes. "You don't have to keep us here," she murmured. "If it's too much, we'll go. I'll find another way." Daniel turned, meeting her gaze. "And where exactly will you go, Emma?" "Back to motels, bus stations, dragging 3 kids through the snow with nothing but a backpack." His voice rose, frustration breaking through. Then he sighed, softer. "Don't insult me by pretending you don't need help." She swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. "I hate that I have to ask you. After everything." Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then, without another word, he turned back to the fire. That night, while the children slept curled up under quilts in the cabin's loft, Emma sat at the small wooden table, staring out the frosted window. Daniel poured 2 mugs of coffee and slid one across to her. "You should rest," he said quietly. Emma shook her head. "I can't. My mind won't stop." She gripped the mug with trembling hands. "What if he finds us? What if I dragged you into this? You don't know what he's capable of." Daniel leaned back, his voice steady. Then let him try, he'll have to get through me first. Her eyes met his, wide and vulnerable. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Something unspoken pulsed between them, something old, something unfinished. But before the silence could shift into something deeper, the sharp buzz of a phone shattered it. Emma's eyes flew to her backpack, where her old cell phone vibrated violently. She snatched it up, staring at the screen. One word glowed there: Mark. Her blood turned to ice. Daniel's voice cut through. Don't answer it. Emma's hand shook. If I don't, he'll know I'm running. Daniel leaned across the table, his voice firm. He already knows. The phone rang until it stopped. Then a message appeared. Emma's eyes filled with fear as she read it aloud. You can run, but they're mine too. You can't hide forever. Her hand clamped over her mouth to muffle a sob. Daniel took the phone from her, his jaw set like stone. Let him come, he muttered. Emma shook her head, tears spilling. You don't understand. He's dangerous, Daniel. He won't just walk away. Daniel looked at her, his eyes blazing with something she hadn't seen in years. Resolve. Neither will I. Upstairs, one of the children stirred in their sleep, murmuring softly. Emma closed her eyes, her heart aching. She had wanted safety. Now she realized safety might come at a price. And outside, the snow kept falling, blanketing the world in silence, as though holding its breath for the storm about to come. The cabin was silent except for the crackle of the fire and the faint wind pressing against the windows. But Emma couldn't sleep. Every creak of the wooden beams made her flinch. Every gust of wind felt like footsteps outside. She lay on the couch, watching shadows dance across the ceiling, her mind looping the message on her phone over and over. Daniel sat by the wind,